So without much more time to spare, I would like to invite Richard Maslen here, who is the, I was going to say compare. He's going to hold the talk for the panel discussion. He's the moderator. And welcome, Richard. And here,
Thanks,
I hand it over to you. Thank you.
Right, I don't know about you, but quite often when we talk about technology, it can get very, very confusing. There's so many different aspects to it and what is happening. But what's clear is in life today, we cannot survive without technology. The world is moving fast, and technology is driving that for us. People are seeing user experiences are getting better with things, and seeing from talking to Uber earlier on, disruption is becoming contagious, and it will continue to be like that. Companies not heard of just a decade ago are now some of the biggest that we see. Uber has grown from nothing to a $58 billion valuation. WhatsApp, which a lot of us have been using to communicate here within this room, has got over 1 billion users and has become a new choice of, and rather than using walkie-talkies at events and things like that, WhatsApp has become a great platform to do that. The pace of change is exhilarating, and that's not going to slow down. Expectations are high, people expect more, they want more. And just like the excitement on a fairground ride on a roller coaster, it's exciting for moments that you go up, but there's twists and turns that bring you back down again, and we will see that with technology as well. And basically what we see is there's some stats that I've just seen recently that show that businesses are now appearing faster and then declining faster from the FTSE index quicker than they ever have done before. So John's given us a real challenge here to talk about technology in just 45 minutes, and it's an unenviable task to do that. But hopefully with the panel, we can look at lots of different areas of how technology is affecting aviation, travel, distribution, and we can explain what's working, perhaps what's not working, and areas that there will be developments as well in the future. So please, if the panel can join me up here, you can see their details on the screen there. And their biographies are all on the AviaDev website, so we don't need to introduce them. So please, if you can all join me on stage.
You want to go there?
So we've got a real mix of people here, distributors, OEMs, data providers. I think to start with, we're going to look at digitalization and how digitalization has changed our world. It's disrupted industries quite a lot. There's been a lot of change happening. It's transformed the way that we look on life. It's transformed the way that we all work together. And the industry's had to adapt to that. Now, Mory, OAG, perhaps as a business, is one of those that has changed the most. I think probably we all remember the days of the big OAG paperback scheduled books. How many pages did they go to?
It used to be the Bible of the travel agencies. I remember when I started at OAG 14 years ago, we used to have more than 800 employees. Currently, we have nearly 250. So these people the task was to do this big, print guide that all of you knows. So that's gone. So OAG reinvented itself. So I think it's a good case of a company that made all the changes through the classic way of doing business to digitalization. Everything is online now. It's real time. So we invested a lot in that by responding to our customer need. Our main customer are the airline themselves. The airline are craving for real-time information, passenger as well. So it's not the book anymore. But surprisingly, I was amazed a few days ago. One of the airlines called me in the Middle East and they wanted to buy the books again. So for £10,000. So I think you need to balance all these things. Technology is here to stay, the new technology. The traditional channels also will not die so soon.
Now, I guess with that journey that you've taken at OAG, you're a good example of the change that has happened. And you've done some studies recently into passenger experience, how the passenger experience will change. Can you give us a little bit of detail on those?
Yeah, it was quite an interesting study and surprising for some of you probably have read that. It's available online. We surveyed 2,000 travelers in the US, and this survey was quite telling. From all this new technology that you heard about, supersonic, artificial intelligence, biometrics, blockchains, And for us, more than 75% of travelers, I think, prefer to see biometric ahead of anything. Why biometric? Because it's more convenient and efficient. So you probably may create all the new technology in the world. If you're not efficient and convenient, you will die. So, and biometric is all over the place now. Some of you know that KLM, for example, is testing the facial recognitions. So probably you may board soon without any document as well. And JetBlue as well has started from Boston. So it's already there from the airline, the airport, Dubai is implementing it, Gatwick. I'm very pleased every time when I land at Gatwick, I don't have to face an immigration person. I have to go through that biometric. And also, that's improved profitability for you guys, for airline and airport. If you are an happy customer, you go through the immigration via facial recognition and all these things. It's helped travelers to spend more when you go quicker through the gates. So if you are hassled by the security, probably your mind will set elsewhere. I think biometric was a key finding for us. And also, we find out that travelers are really, with the mobile phone, for example, they want to be informed all the time. And we talk about flight status recently, delays in Africa and elsewhere. And I was with one of my clients recently, a GDS. In 2004, I was trying to convince that main GDS to embrace the real-time flight information. So currently, we provide real-time flight information to all the GDSs because they want to alert the customer when the flight has been delayed. And that's, as you may know, probably 1 minute delay cost an airline $65. It's a lot of money. So if you can improve your alerting system, and you could do it easily nowadays because the mobiles with us, we sleep with the mobiles. And if you can also improve your the predicting alerting system by using machine learning and artificial intelligence, you can save a huge amount of money. So artificial intelligence and the biometrics was the main key finding for us, and the travelers are keen to embrace that.
Okay, Mory, we'll come back to those a little bit later on. What I'd like to look at now is in how we can use technology to sort of be more efficient in operating aircraft, in ensuring that we're prepared for when an aircraft needs maintenance. And these could be massive savings for airlines. They can also be beneficial to passengers as well, because obviously it's not going to have that shock of an aircraft potentially being taken out of service very quickly. So Rudolph, can you perhaps give us a little bit of an explanation of how technology can help with connected aircraft and connected maintenance?
Absolutely, Rich, and thank you for the opportunity to be part of this panel today. So clearly the two words that stand out in our topic is profitability and technology. And I cannot help but remember yesterday's discussion led by Atu Girmawake about low-cost airlines or versus low fare, or even if it's full-service carriers. At the end of the day, it's about return on investment, it's about profitability, about sustainability, and safety, of course. So where does technology really come in? We know that electric taxiing on your runway is becoming feasible. We heard this morning about eVTOL technologies. But if you look at the published return on investment time, that is still about 3-4 years before you really start making a profit on your investment. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. But in Honeywell, we believe the next frontier for us to cross is in the power of being connected. And that is through digitization and communication. And that will bring in the fourth industrial revolution into aviation. We strongly believe in that. So imagine for a moment your connected aircraft, but it's not a connected aircraft as a standalone platform, as we typically like to look at it. Imagine this aircraft already communicating with its critical systems on board, but also communicating with the four pillars of your aviation value chain in terms of fleet management or asset management, as I will explain in a moment, in terms of flight operations, in terms of passenger experience, and that's been mentioned a number of times this morning already, the passenger experience, because that's your return business. And then in terms of ground handling, your turnaround times, your ground assets, etc. So today, we bring the power of connected of this connected aircraft within the whole enterprise, the aviation enterprise. So it goes way beyond just looking at a single platform, as I've said. And it also goes beyond just looking at an airline. As an OEM, we as Honeywell have approximately 25,000 auxiliary power units out there, which we track, which we gather data, which we can do predictions about, and where we gather the data of maintenance, repair, and overall. So imagine this connected aircraft can give your air traffic control, your airport management, your ground handlers, your flight ops, your airline, all exactly the same situational awareness, where you can see where a catering truck is late, where the cleaners have not attended to an aircraft is going to delay you, and you just mentioned the cost of a delay of a minute. I've got bigger numbers than that, but that's okay, it's still a big number. And we also heard yesterday that everybody pays the same for fuel, for parking, for overflight fees, for airport taxes. So how can we make a difference? How can we be more competitive than our competitors in the market? And I believe the answer lies in consumption. So consumption is a basic economic concept where it means basically the amount of resource that you use up in order to produce your output. So if we can reduce our consumption of whether it be labor, materials, energy, and not only deliver the same output, but also provide enhanced benefits or additional benefits that are not available today. I do believe that is where the technology can bring it in. So if you think about that, an A350 flying a 10-hour journey interacts with a couple of thousand sensors on board. It gathers more than 800 terabytes of data. What do you do with that? How do you convey it? Today, a lot of it is paper-based. It's clipboards, or it's a media that you walk to the aircraft, you download. It's never real-time. Imagine you can do it in pre-flight, during flight, and post-flight. You can communicate all this information. It monitors your onboard auxiliary power unit, your environmental control system, your wheels and brakes, and it senses data up ahead in front. So when your aircraft lands and arrives, your maintenance and repair organization knows what spares should be ready, what type of technician you need to have available. And I had very recently a very nice concept about inventory is the mother of uncertainty. So by just reducing your inventory, you will reduce your consumption. So without going into too much detail, the obvious question is what are the tools that are available to do this? And I've mentioned some of that. One of them is enhanced connectivity in terms of being online. Why should we have lesser connectivity as a passenger than we have being on the ground? So today you can get 10 to 100 times faster internet connectivity. Unfortunately, you're never out of contact with your boss then as well, of course. But you can, I saw that pyramid of basic needs with Netflix at the bottom. So why can't you sit in your seat? Why do you have to do your in-flight entertainment pre-programmed? So the whole passenger experience is enhanced. Imagine you sit in your seat, Richard, and there's a little message that comes up and says, Richard, just to confirm, your bag is actually on board.
That's a very interesting point. As Manish and I will, we both arrived here on Sunday without our bags.
Oh, there you go.
And KLM, I guess this is a sign of where technology sometimes doesn't quite get it right, because if you don't get it right with technology, you actually leave the customer feeling unsettled and unhappy. So, we arrived, our bags weren't here, we ended up having to fill all the forms in and everything. And then literally as we finished filling our forms in, we got a message from KLM saying, oh, by the way, your bag hasn't arrived. So if that had arrived 20, 30 minutes earlier, it would have been a great experience. But actually, it slightly antagonizes you as a customer, thinking, oh, why didn't I know it earlier? I've waited around. So we've got to get it right and everything else. I'd like to just sort of move on to Paul quickly. I'll come back to you on a couple of bits later on. Now, Paul, obviously, Manish has spoken about NDC and one order as one of the GDSs. You've really embraced this. Others perhaps haven't been as quick to go down that route. I've spoken to some of your colleagues, and a lot of them have said there is still a lot of obstacles to going down this route. Some people have actually spoken to him and said, how do we stop NDC? How do we stop this happening? What can you say to people about the value that NDC will offer both to people within the industry, but also sort of to the traveling public as well?
Good, thanks, Richard. Yeah, I think we way down the road of stopping it. You know, we got to embrace the technology. I spoke to Manish earlier on, and we talked about it's not technology that's holding back the industry. The technology is there. It's about people embracing and, you know, moving forward with that technology. So I'm glad you mentioned, you know, of Travelport being ready. And currently we have a number of pilot programs with our airlines, agencies, and we're gaining valuable insight, you know, into that whole customer journey. Because keep in mind, it's fine to have the standards and, you know, the technology, but ultimately it's about the customer experience. So, like I mentioned, you know, our pilot programs is giving us really valuable insight, and it's shaping the future of technology and, you know, how the customer interacts with suppliers across the value chain. So I think it's not a question of holding back, it's a question of understanding how much heavy lifting there is on NDC, because, you know, you have a standard, but the airlines need to be ready to consume, you know, the standard, and they got to be ready with their merchandising platforms to communicate, you know, their value proposition in the manner that they want to communicate with their customer. So I think it's really important that we realize it's going to be a customer journey that might take years to get to the point where, you know, API and IHATA NDC, you know, is fully developed to address customer needs.
Okay, and Manish, you brought things up earlier on about this and you know, what it can deliver. You know, obviously it allows airlines to take better stock of their inventories. They can be more competitive with pricing. They can put offers out quite quickly. They can set projects all together and sort of in a world that we're commoditizing things, it will give them opportunity to be able to break things up and get value from them. It also sort of takes us down this journey towards airlines becoming retailers now rather than actually operating aircraft effectively. You know, how do you feel about that? Do you think that's the path they're going down?
Absolutely. I think one of the things I was mentioning also in my presentation was that it has been actually, it's a pressure from the market. You know, the customer is willing to pay for something they perceive has a value for them. Now, if I'm going in the morning, coming back in the evening, taking like a short flight, and I don't really need to check a bag, why should I feel that I'm paying the same price as the customer next to me who came with 2 bags to check in? It's maybe the price would not still matter, but it's psychology. So people are thinking, wait, I don't want to drink this wine, or I don't want to eat this meal, you know, why should I pay for it? Even though if the airlines go back and look at their arithmetic, they would say, oh, this meal costed probably just a couple of dollars. But for the customer, it's not about saving that $2, because at the end, their perception is, oh, for me, if I go to eat a meal, I pay $10. So for me, I can save my $10, you know? So that's the perception. So now airlines are kind of put in a place where they say, okay, what do I do for the customer? How can I bring to the customer? And what should I offer the customer, what the customer is willing to pay? So it's kind of, you know, coming there. And that's precisely the reason why I believe IATA finally took charge. And the only reason why IATA jumped into it, and because airlines started to do it on their websites. So you started to see different ways of presenting product, different ways of communicating what they're selling. And it became a challenge for the customer, for the travel agent, for anybody. And they went to one website, they saw something, they went to other website, and they could not. So IATA said, hold on a second, I think there's a time. Let's streamline it, let's create a standard so that everybody can communicate in the same language, and it's easier for the customer and the travel agents to compare products.
So would you say now perhaps one of the greatest opportunities with technology is to offer a more personalized service to a customer? Now, you know, we all travel a lot between us, and every one of us will have different needs. What some of us would prefer to go in a lounge, others like an aisle seat or a window seat. You know, the opportunity now is that the airlines to know this information through technology and be able to then present something to you, and at the same time potentially upsell things by saying, well, Mr. Maslen, we know you like an aisle seat, but we're fully booked in the aisle seat, but we can give you an extra legroom one for, and just, you know, being able to that opportunity to upsell. So, you know, is this technology development a great opportunity for everybody? And, you know, are we at a stage of thinking that perhaps, you know, we're just being a little bit slow to adopt to it?
if I may take that,
Yep.
Richard. I think it's all about personalization, and using multi-source content. And we continue to see the shift and the trend towards mobile and voice, commerce. And I think it's important, we predict that mobile, by 2020, 70% of transactions will be via mobile travel transactions. Right. And this sort of builds nicely into personalization, because ideally you want to be pushing a message to the client before he even realizes that he needs a product or a service. And, I was thinking an example. So imagine I could arrive for my flight tomorrow back to Johannesburg, and the airline had my best Merlot wine ready there for me to consume. And that's where we need to get into the personalization mindset, that, you need to be able to accompany your customer across the whole journey. And it's about delivering an experience at the fingertips. And, these days, I'm pretty sure everybody has a mobile phone, and I think that ties in nicely with being at the forefront with personalization, having, those kind of technologies at the tips of our fingers.
So, we've talked quite generally about the technology side of things, but let's talk about Africa now, and let's talk about technology in Africa. Right. It's all well and good us, we're facing opposition in lots of parts of the world. How does being on the African continent affect all of this happening? And what trends are there in Africa that is affecting how technology will be introduced? Does anyone? I think Paul, Mory, do you want to start us?
I think there is this perception again. I remember I was puzzled a few years ago when I had a meeting with one of my good clients. I can name them because I was proud that time. It was 7 years ago. It was Kenya Airways. And I had a meeting with them, and I had my mobile phone. The M-Pesa, all the M-Pesa things was, going on. And one of my best friends, they said to me, Mory, I can pay my bill with my phone, my things. In the UK, I couldn't do that. So you have more mobile phone in Africa than in the West. So that's a massive opportunity today that the airlines are not tapping into. And when I was in China recently at Shenzhen, I was struggling to pay. My flight was delayed, and it was difficult for me to use my Visa card. No Visa card. They don't take Visa. So the WeChat was all over the place. You could pay your coffee, your flight, everything. And that's doable. All my friends in Africa are on WhatsApp. Why the airline in Africa are not tapping into that? So that's the first point. Second point, it's all about convenience, again, efficiencies, and being close to your customer. The new technology we are talking today can easily be embraced by the African continent. Artificial intelligence, biometrics, it's not rocket science, it's there. I was in Senegal 2 weeks ago with the new airport. They are implementing the e-gate system. That's new technology, and that will improve things. People will probably, as I said, if you're happy, you go through security, you spend more. So it's both ways. But I think overall, the airline industry is very slow compared to the other industry. Google is investing heavily in your industry, and they will take advantage of the profit margin. Kayak, even these big meta search, I won't name them because some of them are all my clients. They are currently using your data, the schedule data, the flight status, to get people pay more. They don't care about pricing. When you travel a business, the price is not an issue. You want to get there. So they will compare, in terms of OTP, on-time performance, the most punctual airlines, and they will get you pay more if this airline is 80% more punctual than others. So again, this is new technology. So I think there is a slow side of the airline industry, compared to the other industry. So they need to speed up. NDC is a good example. It's been a long time we're talking about NDC. I think if it was outside the airline industry, they would do it probably, faster.
Manish,
I have to just highlight one small thing here, and maybe it's not small, but it is something. The airline business processes, which have been here for over 50, 60, 70 years, the problem is it has developed organically. Now, if you want to change this organic chemistry, it's either you can break it, start new, like Google. Google is, they start from scratch. What do? You know, they don't have the legacy fallback to say, okay, how do I now convert my PNR into an order? They don't have that problem. So that's the biggest challenge airlines are facing today. There is a fare filing department. All they know is how to file fares. There is a revenue management department. They know how to compute a bid price and how to do a calculation of how much is the fare filing forecasting, fare forecasting I can do, I can give it to the fare filing who will file it. Now, I'm taking just 2 examples. There are so many more things in the industry. In the airline business process. How can you just say, okay, give me this on WeChat, I will pay on WeChat? You know, you will see most of the airline systems today, they are layers over layers over layers. You know, there is a basis PSS, then there is an intermediary system, then there is an aggregation system, then there is a web system, then there is a mobile system. You know, it's just, and it complicates, it's more expensive, its cost of ownership is high, and that's one of the things airlines are also struggling with today.
But that's where the future is. The future is there. You need to embrace the future. Or, you know, as I said, people will take advantage and the profit margin from the airline will be slow. Let's take an example. Let's take Ryanair, for example. They were bold. I think today airlines need also to reposition themselves. They don't have to sell only the seats. They can be through shopping mall. And the #1 insurance car quote in Ireland is not from other industry. It's Ryanair. That's where people buy the insurance products. Why, you as an airline, if your customer is happy, satisfied, they can buy anything from your website. So that website can be a way, to increase your profitability, because all is down to profitability. If you don't increase your profitability, you will still have this 4 or 5%, profit margin and happy. And other people will make more than that. So I think it's about being bold. You have to break it at some point. It's very difficult to do that, I guess. But, the low cost as Ryanair, that's why probably they are one of the most profitable airlines in the world. So they sell everything. Yeah. They sell you car insurance, everything.
Yeah. Rudolph, you had something you wanted to say?
Yes, coming back to your question about is it available for African airlines? Absolutely. Satellite communications is there. There's not a single square millimeter of SATCOMs that does not cover Africa. So you can have your connected aircraft tomorrow. You can do crowdsourcing of weather data. So besides your onboard weather radar, you can communicate with other planes in your area, which in Africa is quite important because more often than not, we don't have ground-based weather radar available. So through crowdsourcing of the flights crossing Africa, you can share that data, you can do your flight operations, you can replan your routes, you can avoid bad weather. So all of that is available. There's absolutely no reason why African airlines cannot embrace that.
Okay, I'd just like to sort of quickly go on to talk about blockchain. Now, who in the audience knows or has heard of blockchain? Can you put your hands up? Now, keep those hands up. Who actually still understands what blockchain is? Okay, there's a few of you. That's good. Now, blockchain has been pushed about as being this magic wand that's going to solve all the problems that we all have, and it's going to be the perfect way that we're going to do business in the future. Just some examples here that I've got. The Singapore Airlines is going to launch a digital wallet for its loyalty program. Lufthansa has teamed up with Winding Tree to look at solutions and how it can work on travel bookings. But literally what's been told in the last couple of weeks is analysts have turned around and said it's just purely a buzzword. We're putting too much into this technology and believing that it is going to be this magic wand that's going to make life easier for us. So I don't know if any of you here would like to sort of comment on your views on blockchain.
Yeah, sure. We are here for technology, so we're going to talk about it. Now, I think like every other technology, it has to go through the evolution phase. And I think the potential, what blockchain promises, if you look at the real, when you go down into the bits and bytes of it, it's basically trying to help you create something which is a little bit decentralized and has its own, let's say, a process which authenticates. For example, there is a value to a transaction which you can trust, because it has the way it is built up. Now, we don't want to get into the details of the algorithm, but the important thing is that there is a value and trust created. And just one simple example is that today, IATA sits on a number of travel agents, and they accredit them and they contract. This is a centralized process. Now, you could imagine that by sheer value creation of a travel agent who has been regular in payments, who makes sure their value increases, this could easily be used by blockchain to say, okay, anybody can deal with the travel agent. They don't need to go to IATA, and they can just say, okay, I trust, because in the blockchain environment, I see that their certification authenticates it. For example, I mean, I'm not saying that this will happen tomorrow, but what I'm saying is the technology can enable certain things like these. We are also talking about smart contracts. So good thing you mentioned about selling other things. Now, as an airline, if I want to sell hotels is a very nice example, but let's say I want to sell like a voucher for a mobile which is being opened by a new company, a new mobile company. Now, how do I trust? So today what will happen is airline will go there, they will make a contract, they will say, okay, what will happen, what you'll give. Tomorrow, airline will just say, okay, I am opening my market. Anybody who wants to offer mobile cards can sell. This is my standard protocol. I'm going to put it on the blockchain. You're going to then use it. Whoever, they apply, they follow the standard, they follow, and that's how the ecosystem is created. Once the ecosystem is created, more trust is generated. More trust is generated, more transactions happen. So it has to reach that crucial stage, that effect has to happen. But I think the technology can deliver, but the applications need to gear up to use the technology.
Okay, thanks, Rich. We're running out of time here, so just wondered if we've got any quick questions from the audience, if you've got to ask any of these distinguished gentlemen anything about technology. Yep, please. Has anyone's got a mic?
Thank you very much. I'm Mate from Kiwi.com. I would have a question regarding NDC, and I agree with Mory that the airline industry is quite slow-moving and slow-paced. So my question is, don't you think that when NDC will be, let's say, well-based and well-implemented among the world of airlines, it will already be outdated, and NDC will always be running after the new technologies, and the standardization will be do so. Thank you.
Paul, I think that's a perfect one for you.
You want no? Let him take it. I've been speaking a lot.
That is quite a controversial statement, though, that we'll always be lagging behind, because I think IATA is doing a fantastic job in releasing new versions, as we move along. But keep in mind, this is like I said, a journey. We're learning new technology, and you're so right what you said. It's legacy systems that's worked for 50, 60 years, and they've worked well. Let's acknowledge it. They work well. So I share your concern to some extent that the pace is really slow, but I don't think, again, it's going to be technology holding us back. It's about the airlines and agencies and across the travel value chain embracing those technologies and moving with the pace that technology is moving. And we have many airlines that's quite progressive in that area. They've already set up their merchandising platforms and suites to deal with that kind of environment. But you will find some airlines will be really slow moving. And there I agree with your point that by the time those airlines have caught up, and going with APIs and NDC, the technology might have moved on, and we might be in a new space with virtual reality, augmented reality. So by the time they implement IATA standards, we might be in a complete different travel landscape.
Just one small note to that is that IATA is trying to do its best to keep it on top. I mean, given these constraints, as we explained, every year, twice the standards are updated and it's coming with new functionalities. And of course, if you want to get into the IT side of things, somebody might say, oh, XML is now old now. People are talking about RESTful and JSON. So IATA has actually taken care to find you a converter that if you wanted to use XML and your application was actually on JSON, a RESTful API, you could translate it into XML. So IATA is aware of this. They are doing things. Again, it's a big industry. There are a lot of players. The ecosystem has to rise. This takes time.
Okay, we're out of time now. We've got a red clock here. So I'm sure these gentlemen will be happy to talk if you have any questions over lunch or this afternoon.
More than welcome.
So please, I'd just like to thank them for their time. And